Morning, everybody. Daniel Sherman here. I'm driving off to one of the local county jails. So I thought today I would talk about the jail and prison system, give you some information on that and how it's set up in Kentucky. Before I go into that, just want to thank everybody who watches the videos, comments, follows my page. Over the past couple weeks, I've had quite a few people ask me some questions where I just said, well, just get on my Facebook page and there's answers for it. So if you guys could just, tell people to go ahead and follow the page. It answers, I think, a lot of questions, and it saves people a lot of money. If you got legal advice, you're getting it for free. So I also want to say when I do these, I'm just kind of doing it off the cuff. I don't have anything prepared. There's no cuts in between this. This is all one feed. So if it's a 15-minute video, you're seeing me for 15 minutes. So this may not be quite as professional as some of the other videos you may see, but it's not really designed to be that way. It's more, I'm not designing it for profit. I'm designing it, to inform the public and so people kind of get to know me. So I do say a lot of uhs and and I say a lot. I don't mean to do that, but when you're doing it from your head and you don't have anything prepared, you don't have a script or anything, it's not like a trial or a hearing where I would prepare for it. So kind of what you're getting here is kind of a raw speech for me, really. You're not getting something that is really prepared and supremely well thought out. This is just kind of off the cuff. So I just kind of want to let everybody know that when I'm actually in court in front of the judge or in front of a jury, I'm better spoken, I'm more articulate, I make a lot more sense because I'm prepared. I spend on some of these trials weeks. I've got a trial next week. I just did the jury instructions. They were like 22 pages. So I've spent 15-20 hours on that so far. I'll probably spend another 20 to 30 hours on it before everything's all said and done. So this is not a finished product that you see here. This is just kind of me rambling and talking about it. So Kentucky has a jail system and a prison system. Initially, when we had the system, jails were designed to house individuals that were awaiting trial or individuals that were serving county time. Now, county time is going to be somebody who was convicted of a misdemeanor or failure to appear or contempt of court. So that's what the county jail were designed for, and the county has to pay for that. Well, after the prisons were built, it became apparent that there were not enough prisons to house all the state inmates, all the prisoners. To be a prisoner and a state inmate, you have to be convicted of at least a Class D felony, so you have to be serving at least 1 year in prison. So if you're ever sentenced to a felony, the court will say 1 year, 2 year, whatever it is, prison. They will say that prison because that makes you a state inmate. Now, there are differences between county and state inmates. I'm not going to get into that now, but just the important thing is county jails were designed to house county inmates, and state prisons were designed to house state prisoners, which would be people that were convicted of felonies. But given that Kentucky, over the last 30 years has made punishments longer, we, in fact, I think, incarcerate more people per capita than any other state in the country. And for some reference, the U.S. Incarcerates per capita more than any other country in the world. That includes China. So essentially, the incarceration capital of the world is sitting here in Kentucky. So when you have something like that, what you get is the prisons get full. So when I started practicing in 2005, jails were allowed to house Class D inmates. So that's people that were facing prison sentences between 1 and 5 years, and they were convicted of Class D felonies. they were allowed to be housed in county jails. And what would happen is the state would pay a certain amount of, $50+ a day for each inmate to the county, and the county actually would use that a lot to subsidize their county inmates. So a good county jail usually will have either a surplus budget from the state inmates, or will basically not cost the county anything because they're using state inmates' funds. It costs about $25 a day to house an inmate at a county jail, and they're getting $50-something a day. And part of the reason they're getting $50-something a day because those include some of the programs that the state prison offers. The state correctional staff receive higher pay. They receive better benefits. So that is why it costs more to house a state inmate than a county inmate. So when I was practicing, D inmates only could be housed in county jails. And in fact, when I was starting to practice, I would go over to the jail, and you could smoke in the jail. I remember going back to the legal room, and you get clients that bum a cigarette. I'm a smoker, so clients would bum a cigarette off me. And I had realized, so you guys smoke in front of me, because I'm not having you take it back to your cell and catching a contraband charge. I'm just not doing that. So you smoke it here, and then we can do that. And the jail was really good about it. They were lenient, and the inmates were just smoking out, basically anywhere they wanted through the jail. And then I think in 2007, the state passed a law that said, hey, if you are going to house state inmates, you have to be non-smoking. So in our county, Muhlenberg County, and in most counties, they said, well, we need to house the state inmates because we make money that offsets our county inmates. So basically every county jail has gone to non-smoking as of like 2007. So that was, at least in my practice, very short-lived with the smoking, but that's what we have now. So all jails and prisons are essentially non-smoking. What kind of prisons are there, and what kind of jails are there? Again, the jails are designed really to house county inmates, but they do house Class D inmates, and then about 10 or 15 years ago, they're now allowed to house Class C inmates. So if you're a state inmate, you're serving a prison sentence, you're convicted of a Class D or C felony, you can serve that time in a county jail. You can serve all that time in a county jail. But if you're a Class B inmate, so you're convicted of a Class B felony, say burglary first, robbery first, manufacturing methamphetamine, criminal abuse first degree, there's trafficking in a controlled substance greater than 2 grams, second offense. Those are all Class B felonies. Now, there's a little quirk about Class B felonies. Assuming it's not a violent offense, you are actually eligible to be put in a halfway house 1 year prior to your parole date. So if you're serving a 10-year sentence on a Class C felony, you're at 20%, so you're going to have to serve at least 2 years before being parole eligible. But if you're serving a Class B felony, and assuming it's not a violent offense, you still have to serve the 2 years before being parole eligible, but you're eligible for a halfway house in 12 months. So if you had the choice, and I have a lot of clients that know this now, and I've known it for a while, they would rather be convicted of a Class B felony because they get put in a halfway house, and most of them do get put in a halfway house if they're non-violent. Most of them, they do the application, they qualify. You don't have to worry about parole. You're not really getting paroled. You're just getting sent to a halfway house. So, for a year, and then you're sent out on parole. So, if you have the choice of being convicted of a Class C felony or B felony, as long as it's nonviolent, pick the B felony, especially if it's 11 or 12 years and you're looking at 9 or 10 on the C felony. Take the more years because you're going to get out sooner, and you're almost guaranteed parole because they're trying to fill up these halfway houses. So that's just kind of a little inside info for you. So if you guys are out committing crimes, make sure it's a nonviolent B felony as opposed to a C felony. So just some food for thought. In any event, so the state prisons are divided into minimum, medium, and maximum security. Now, the only minimum security prison in Kentucky is Blackburn. That's in Lexington. And it's basically a dorm system. There's, the fences aren't quite as high. It's less supervision. And those are going to be people that are, nonviolent offenders, and those are going to be people that assess low on their risk assessment score. We can get into that later, what that means. And then most of the most of the prisons are medium security. So Green River Correctional Complex here in Muhlenberg County, that's a medium. Eastern Kentucky Correctional Complex, Western Kentucky Correctional Complex, Little Sandy, those are all medium security prisons. We have one maximum security prison in Kentucky. That's Kentucky State Prison. And that is in Eddyville, Kentucky. That is Lyon County. It's about an hour from where I'm at. And I do want to talk a little bit about Kentucky State Penitentiary, because I did the prison docket over there for about 3 months. And KSP has kind of its own justice system. It has court inside the prison. There's a bench. There's bailiffs. The judge goes in there. The lawyers are in there. They have court inside the prison. Now, I think that's probably unconstitutional because criminal proceedings are supposed to be public, and the public are supposed to have access to it, and the public can't have access to that court system. So as far as I'm concerned, I think it's probably not constitutional. Now, when they do have trials, they do have them in the Lyon County courthouse, so those are public. But the regular, arraignments, pretrial conferences, pleas, sentencings, those all happen inside the prison. You got to go through security, and then you go to this little courtroom. And it was very interesting with the maximum security prison and with the inmates there. Most of them were convicted of, murder. Some of them were convicted of robbery and a few other things. And some were just like, they weren't necessarily serving, long sentences, but they were just so difficult to deal with in the other prisons. They just said, we're going to send you to the maximum security prison. So I did see that. I represented quite a few murderers over there. Now, what they were being charged with was not murder. They were in there for murder, but they were committing crimes inside the prison. And that's why they had the courthouse in the actual prison. And, some of it's going to be, promoting contraband, sneaking drugs, cell phones, cigarettes, whatever in. Some would be assaulting guards. Most of them, though, actually were assaulting other inmates. I think I had told you all before when I explained parole eligibility that I didn't have a single client over there, and I probably did 50 or 60 of them in the 3 months, and they all were serving their maximum. They all had their good time taken away because, that's a real prison. I mean, that's, what you see on Lockup, and actually KSP was on Lockup. If you all watched that show, I think it was on A&E. If you watched it, that's what it is. Like, there are gangs and there are stabbings, and they segregate by race. You don't necessarily see that in some of the other prisons, but you definitely see that at Kentucky State Penitentiary. It's not probably somewhere you really want to serve time, but they do have a lot of programs at KSP, so that is one of the benefits. You can knock down sometimes your minimum time, but again, if you're stabbing people, you're probably not getting the minimum time anyway. So that's Kentucky State Prison. And then you also have Kentucky State Reformatory. That is in LaGrange, Kentucky, and that's we call it the farm. And the reason we call it the farm is the assessments and classification center is there. So if you're convicted of a felony and you're not going to be serving the time in the county jail for whatever reason, a lot of time it's going to be if you have a medical issue, or if you're a B felon, you can. And if your risk assessment is really high, so if you've got like a bunch of escape charges or something like that, that's going to be, your risk level is going to be higher. So they'll send you to KSR, and you'll be there for about 3 or 4 weeks before they classify you. They'll give you your time sheet, and then they'll say, well, this is where you're going to, at least initially, be serving your time. And this is the prison, and they can even conceivably put you in a jail. There's some jails that do get quite a few state inmates, from KSR. I know we don't in Muhlenberg, and I'm going to Hopkins now. They typically don't, but that is what KSR is for. They do the KCPC evaluations. I think the sex offender program is required to be done there. They've got a dormitory system. But usually when people go there, they're only there for a few weeks, and then they, go to wherever they're serving. So that is how the jail system and the prison system, it's kind of evolved over the years from, hey, we're just housing county inmates to now we're housing, Class D and Class C felons. And, really that is because we in Kentucky, we have the 1 to 5, 5 to 10. And I've told you guys about that. We're the only state that still has that. We modeled ours after New York, and New York has cut theirs down. I don't know of any state that does the 1 to 5, 5 to 10. Most of them are 1 to 3, 3 to 6 or something like that, or they'll have these Class E felonies. But we are very harsh on crime in Kentucky. And we actually, our crime rate, now I guess the argument is, well, because we're so harsh on crime, our crime rate is actually significantly lower than the national average, and our violent crime rate is very much lower than the national average. And part of that's because Kentucky's kind of rural, so you don't quite get the gangs and stuff like that. But that is Kentucky prison system. I know I went through that kind of a long speech, and maybe not a lot of it kind of went through your head, but I'll sum it up. County jails house county inmates and Class D and C felons. State prisons house at least Class D felons all the way up to capital offenses. I will say this about Kentucky State Penitentiary. That is where all the death row inmates are. That is where, if you're going to be put to death, you're put to death at Kentucky State Penitentiary. It's known as the Castle. It's from the outside, it's absolutely beautiful. It overlooks, I think, Lake Barkley. It's really scenic. It really is, but you don't want to be there. So hope you all enjoyed this video. Hope it was somewhat informative. Looking at my timer, it's about 17 or 18 minutes. I rambled on a little bit, but if there's some other videos you guys want me to do, just let me know. I'll be happy to do them for you, assuming that I know the law. And hope you all have a good day. It's nice weather out. Get out. I know I'm driving, but get out and have fun tonight. Take care.